Hey, this is Jonathan Lunger of Hologramchat.com, and this is Fireside Chat, episode 56. And tonight, I'm very happy to introduce my dear friend Marcia Bell, who is a bona fide cat whisperer and a Hollywood talent agent extraordinaire. And it's going to be an awesome show, so definitely stay tuned for the whole show. And I'm going to put you on speakerphone now. How you doing, Marcia?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. So the first question was, and once again, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm real excited for this. And the first question was, could you tell a little bit about your background with truffles and the recipes that our viewers can make for their cats?
Well, actually, there's a lot more than truffles I have. Let's, to kind of put things into, I guess, give a background and put things into a little bit of perspective. Truffles is one of 4 cats that I currently have. I have the father, Johnny Black. Truffles is the daughter, and then she has a sister named Action and a brother named Fluffy. Also, there is the cat that lives next door to the next door neighbor named Finn, who's at my place 24/7. So they're my cats at the moment. I was raised with cats, and my one cat Troy, who I had for 18 years from 1988 to 2007, so she was just about 19 years old, and so I've always had cats and just been very close to them. But with Truffles, what happened in 2013 in February is I come home from a music lesson and I find her lying on the porch, and she was paralyzed, and she had wet on herself, and she just didn't look right at all. And I'm like, oh, Truffles. And then when I look at her, she can't move, and she tries to scoot herself, and that's when I see all of the damage and the injuries to her. And so, to make a long story short, I rush her to the nearest vet, and they had to do emergency surgery. They had to remove her tail. We're really not sure what happened to her. Apparently, she was hit by a car, but another situation could be that she fell off the roof because she likes to walk on the roof of the house. But anyway, getting her back on her feet was about a month. It took about a month, and I spent after her surgeries and the medications, and 2 times they told me to put her to sleep, and then at the last minute saying, let's try another medication finally. Right when I was finally saying, okay, I'm going to put her to sleep. None of us can stand this pain anymore. But eventually, after taking her twice a day to the vet for 3 weeks, twice a day, every day for 3 weeks to have her expressed, meaning having her bladder emptied because she lost sensitivity in her bladder and wasn't able to urinate on her own. Finally, she started to come around, and I believe, and John, we had talked about this before, right? Was that I told you, I told all my family, I told all my friends, I told all my actors, I told all the casting directors I work with, I told everyone on Facebook, I talked to people from my parish, and just talked to everyone, and everyone's just like, oh, I hope she gets well, I hope she gets well. And the other thing I did was I spoiled her, which I guess I kind of regret because it means that I would just pet her and pet her and pet her and tickle her and pet her and pet her, scratch her neck and pet her like for half an hour every day, at least once or twice, just these long periods of petting and petting and hugging and petting. And I believe that's how she got well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And can you believe it's almost a year? Next month would be a year. And I mean, that was so stressful because a couple of times she ran away. She escaped out of the house, and I thought I'd never see her again. And it was just, somehow it all worked out. And what I want to tell the people is when you have a pet that the veterinarian tells you to put them to sleep, think twice. Cats and dogs. You know, you're just not sure. You don't know. So in my case, I'm glad I twice, you know, I was ready to put her to sleep, and somehow, you know, we just worked through it. And I think that's one thing people should do with their pets, is not automatically put their pet to sleep just because the veterinarian says put them to sleep.
Yeah, and I was so in awe of how much love and care you gave Truffles in terms of the expressing process. You told me is not an easy process.
Oh, it took me forever to learn how to do it. You know, you have to take the cat and find their bladder and then get a hold of their bladder and squeeze. And you've got to hold the cat with one hand, and cats don't like to be expressed. And it was just during the weekend I wasn't able to express her at first, and when I got her finally to the vet on Monday, her bladder was doubled. It was like if she went another hour, she would have burst.
Oh, wow.
But finally I learned how to do it, and still she's never liked being expressed, but I did find a way to do it that was somewhat comfortable, you know.
Yeah.
Holding her over the toilet and then finding the bladder and just kind of softly squeezing it. But it's not easy, but it's something you learn how to do, because if you have to do it, you will learn.
Right.
And I think that goes for so many different, you know, other things in life, don't you, John? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. What would you say? Would you say that the recipe with the tuna juice is one of the cat's favorite?
You know, I'm actually writing a cookbook now.
Nice.
Called The Cat's Meow. And if you want to write that down, okay. But anyway, you know, one thing that I learned with my cat Troy when I was back in the late 80s, early 90s was that cats should not eat tuna fish or fish at all. And what's surprising is that there's so much fish in the cat foods when you go to the grocery store, and when you go even to specialty stores to buy cat food. Well, the one thing that is safe for cats, and they love, is to take a dry cat food, and you can get something inexpensive, even like Alley Cat. And what you do is when you get your tuna fish, and these days you don't get oil, you can't find tuna in oil, but tuna in water. So what you do is you open your can of tuna fish, and you kind of squeeze out that water as you're opening it with the can opener, and put that in a little cup or a little bowl or whatever, and put it over to the side. Then you put your Alley Cat Friskies, or if the cat is Imes, whatever. And there's even the cat food that you could buy at the vet, which are really good cat foods too. But it's a snack. It's not something you can give them every day.
Right.
But you can give them that tuna juice. You just pour it on top of the dry cat food, and they are in heaven.
I bet.
And giving them treats like that, that's good for their mood as well.
Yeah.
It gets them out of their depressions, because pets get depressed just like humans.
Yeah, I told you I felt guilty for buying that $20 toy for them the other day.
I saw that today. I saw it today. I went to Fred Meyer, which is Kroger's. I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania. Right. You are, but I saw that. I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that is that thing that John bought.
Yeah, they love it.
Well, only $20.
Yeah.
Just think of these drug addicts and stuff with $20. Yeah. 2 minutes, gone.
Yeah.
Okay, at least this, you buy this $20 toy, they have it for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Keeps them in shape.
Yeah.
Because cats need to stay in shape just like humans.
Yeah.
So they could live 20 and 25 years.
Yeah. And
I think you made the right decision buying that.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about earlier tonight how this episode will touch on stuff, but we'll go more into depth on the recipes and the more in depth on the Hollywood stuff, and we could even do cooking shows and workout shows and all that stuff more in depth too. Because you've always had so much knowledge on so many topics that, you know, you're just a fountain of knowledge. And
well, we could have a debate, about that. You know, the more you study and the more knowledge you have, the more knowledge you realize you don't have.
Exactly.
But the one good thing is it's a motivation to just acquire more knowledge.
Yeah.
You can with the little bit of time that you got.
Yeah.
You know, I've even noticed that a lot of the knowledge I had when I was younger, I don't have anymore because I guess I didn't use it or it wasn't necessary in this particular point of your life. But, you know, it's just real interesting how all that works, the knowledge we have. I know there's a reason for us to know things and to learn things.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we both have great libraries, and we're always trying to learn through books and the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Different.
You know, I had one of your books with me in Europe. I'm sure it was something that you had lent me, which I need to send back, but it was by, oh gosh, I can't remember the name, but it was about like an ancient Egyptian religion.
Nice.
This particular religion from ancient Egypt, and it was just so inspiring. I would sit there with no radio, no TV, no internet, no cell phone. This was when I was in Europe, in Italy this summer. And you don't have access. When you travel a lot, you don't have access to a lot of the things you have at home. So I was able to sit down and really kind of get into the philosophy of this ancient Egyptian religion, and I was just taking so many notes and writing.
Nice.
And it's just so neat when you get that chance to get out of this technological, what do you want to call this, what we've got going these days.
Yeah, it's like a tech loop where people just get caught up in.
It's like a ball of, but it's not a ball of yarn like a ball of yarn that's ordinate and it's in order and it's, you know, it's wound up. It's just like when you take something, you got all these knots.
Yeah.
And you can't find where the beginning of the knot is.
Yeah.
And you're just going through this mass. And the only way you could get out of it sometimes is to leave. You have to leave your environment.
Yeah.
Like you going to Miami, did that happen to you?
Oh, absolutely. It's like being in a different time zone, a different weather area. You find that you just like you're starting with a clean slate. You just, you know, you don't get into your old patterns, and you're ready to start making new patterns, and It's a beautiful thing, and you know, you should hold on to that book because you've given me so much knowledge over the days, and you know.
Well, I have some books I want to send you. I had sent you one book. I remember back when you were in Portland.
Yeah.
And I tried to send you, and you gave me your address. I still have it in the Amazon.com, and you said you never received it.
Yeah,
So maybe one of your neighbors pinched it.
Yeah. They do make mistakes here and there, and you know, but
think they turn it in.
I appreciate that, though.
It's not that big of a deal. But still, you know, I was like, gosh, I can't believe John didn't get that.
I know.
But that's one good thing, though, still is being able to send people books through Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want my books delivered via drone, but I do love the Amazon books.
I know. Amazon.com, drone.
Right.
Yeah, just as already they can't even get the stuff to you with the FedEx.
Right.
And they expect it to come on the drone, okay.
Yeah. So I'm glad Truffles is better, and you know, thanks to all the love you gave Truffles, and
one day we'll have to also talk about the Charleston Chew situation.
Oh, definitely.
That'll be another show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, everybody stay tuned on that one.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Not, under any circumstances, want to miss the discussion on Charleston Chew.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what would you say, I know that you've been talent agent in Hollywood for the past, 1 or 2 years now?
It's been about 3 or 4 now.
That's awesome.
Into the Hollywood, and actually, let's say, I call it Hollywood. Basically, right. We call it Hollywood, but it's Los Angeles and New York.
Right.
And basically any area that shoots television shows, films, commercials, right. And other type of media projects.
Well, you know so much more about this topic than me, and I, you know, like I didn't even know the Oh Marcia, Oh John reference that a lot of people know, but what would you say that you've learned throughout your working with Hollywood, and what areas need to be improved on, or what areas are already good?
Well, one thing I really think is a lot better than people would think is that within the industry, within the talent agent and the casting directors and the directors and the producers, that's a very flourishing, very healthy community. What do you want to say? Environment, like work culture.
Right.
The problem, I hate to say, are the actors. And the problem is, I mean, it's hard to use the word like problem or trouble because those are kind of negative things. But what I want to say is the
opportunity.
The issues that what's not productive. The problem, the issue, the piece that's not as productive is the fact that, okay, what we try to do is make life easier so let's say the director tries to make life easier for the producer. The casting director tries to make life easier for the director. The agent tries to make life easier for the casting director. That's why you work with different people to take care of things so you don't have to do it. That's why you hire people so you don't have to do it. You hire someone to put in a new kitchen for you so you don't have to do it. That makes your life easier. That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Right.
So when it comes to make the picture complete, you have to have that continuum onto the actor.
Right.
And what happens a lot of the time is you have this complete network behind the scenes industry professionals, and then when it comes to working with the actor, you're not able to present that piece, that what is it, the collusion? Right. Is that the word I'm looking for? That glues everything together, and so that could be a problem. There's other issues. We had talked about, you had talked to me about some of the issues about diverse actors and how there's not a lot of, not as much opportunities for actors of color, and that's another, thing that probably needs to be looked at a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
And not just touched upon. Yeah. And all that stuff works together. All that stuff works together because nobody, if you're a minority or a minority or part of the majority, you don't want to feel like you're getting something because either somebody felt obligated to give it to you, right, or because someone was giving you an extra pat on the back.
Right.
So I think that's one of the major issues I see in Hollywood is there's no even playing field. But there is and there isn't.
Right.
Because the actors need to bring it up too.
Right.
We could say, oh, well, they didn't hire him because he's a minority, and they didn't hire him because he's a woman, and they didn't, but really, you've got to be at the top of your game. I'll go out to bat. I will go out to bat for any minority actor.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not up at the top of their game, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right. I love Spike Lee and Robert Townsend for bringing the Hollywood dichotomy and issues to the forefront in terms of that there are many
stereotype. Oh, that's another discussion. But John, these are entire discussions that we could spend hours.
Right.
The stereotypical casting is beyond. It's still going on in 2014. East Indians with this. Most East Indians even speak with American accents now.
Right.
And they still want to cast people who have these very traditional Indian accents of 30 and 40 and 50 years ago.
Right, and there's a lot of English actors from England who've gotten the American accent down pat and get the role above American actors too.
Yeah, well, I have one British actress that I work with, and she had auditioned for a television show. Of course, I can't give any names,
right,
so let's not even go in that direction. But she had auditioned for a role for a native British BBC accent, and do you know who got cast? An American.
Wow.
Now, things like that, those also are in a discriminatory, that goes in with discrimination, with racial discrimination, and with, any kind of discrimination.
Right.
You don't do that. And those are some things that happen. Another thing that happens is casting able-bodied people,
right,
people with handicaps.
Right.
That's happened in a lot of television shows, too, and I'm not going to, of course, mention the name, but most people, all you have to do is turn on the television, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I have actors who use wheelchairs.
Mm.
They can't get an audition, but then you turn on the television and they have a person who could walk perfectly,
right,
and they're portraying a person in a wheelchair.
Right. And I liked how you phrased it earlier in terms of, not wanting to dwell on the negatives, because all of these problems with Hollywood could also be seen as opportunities to improve it.
It's something that you could improve, and it was improved before in the 70s. When you think of the 70s, there was so much diversity and just so much excitement, and so. But these days, everything is so dry and just so blah. And I don't know what it is. It's like people have lost. They've just become more complacent in these later years. I've found. I mean, being a person who was grew up in the 70s.
Right.
What I saw with the hippies and the revolution and the civil rights and the da-da-da and the da-da-da. I mean, there was so much going on and so much excitement at that time. Now things aren't so exciting, and so I get more, what's the word I'm looking for? I get so, not emotional.
Passionate.
Well, it bothers me. I get so, I don't want to say agitated, but I get so wound up because I'm like, why are people so complacent? Why don't more minority actors want to make sure that they're included in the ball game? Why aren't they going up to bat for themselves? Why? I mean, back in the day, that's what people did. People went and said, look, I've got this story. I've got this script. I've got the budget. See, you can't just go and say, I've got the script. And you've got to come with the cash, too.
Right.
Like these people who made those Blaxploitation films.
Right.
They had the money to make those films too. You can't just go to Hollywood and go to a group of white men sitting at a table and say, I've got this great idea for this Chinese oriented show about blah blah blah, because you saw what happened with Kung Fu.
Right. Well, I think Hollywood actually.
Lee had produced Kung Fu, it would have been a whole nother story. But see, he went to the Hollywood, and he wanted them to help him.
Right, and they wanted David Carradine instead.
They wanted David Carradine, who did not have one drop.
Right.
Asian.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And like, as far as like some of the Blaxploitation movies, I think that Hollywood did put some money behind it because they wanted to portray people in that vein of gangsters.
Well, what happened was, though, since I was there, I could tell you.
Okay.
From my view.
Okay.
Okay, this may not be the Bible, but I will tell you, those Blaxploitation films like Coffee and Cotton Comes to Harlem and this and that, Watermelon Man,
Dolomite, yeah.
Yeah, all those movies made a lot of money, and they were targeted toward black audiences.
Right.
But they just moved into mainstream because they were just so exciting and interesting and just pizzazz. They just popped. Yeah. So they made all this money. So then Hollywood, of course, says, well, we're gonna cash in on this. And that's when you get the stereotypical, you get Starsky and Hutch.
Right.
And you get these things where they got these pimps on the corner.
The knockoffs.
Because they're looking at the pimps that were in the Mac,
right.
But they're not putting it in the same context as they were doing in these Blaxploitation films.
Right.
So what they did is they started making these shows, but the blacks were the pimps and the robbers but you never saw anybody like Superfly.
Right.
In a television, or Shaft.
Right.
Whenever it would come to television or some kind of a Caucasian film, it would definitely have to have like a white hero.
Right.
And I think that's a problem and it could be a problem with all races, is when you're putting a movie together, are you going to say, oh, I'm going to make the black person the hero.
Right.
You know, I mean,
that's why I like.
I'm gonna make the white person the hero.
Yeah, that's why I like.
I'm gonna make a Mexican person the hero.
That's why I like I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, because Keenen Ivory Wayans was making the black guys the hero against the drugs, and you know, I'm glad to see that Spike Lee and Robert Townsend and Keenen Ivory Wayans, you know, put a different version of what Hollywood was putting out.
Yeah, yeah. And see, we still need a lot of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess it could be complicated. I think people make things more complicated than they need to be.
True.
You know, as we talked about, I'm working on another degree in marketing and management and business. And what I found that a lot of people who want to make indie films want to do it as an artistic endeavor. Well, the first thing you need to do is, if you're going to make any kind of a movie, or, you know, if you're a rich person with a trust account, but people who have trust funds can do these things, right? You have money, you can make a movie, your own movie, whatever. But if you really want to get into that industry, it's a money-making industry.
Right.
So if you're going to make a movie, you want to think ahead. You want to say, look, I'm making this movie because I'm going to spend, let's say $100,000 on this movie that I'm going to collect through friends, family, angel investors, blah, blah, blah. But with this $100,000, what I need to make at least $2 million, and this is just being modest. I need to make a $2 million revenue so I can pay back my investors, you know, license, rights, blah, blah, blah. I need all this stuff so I can make a profit. And so many people go into this movie industry wanting to do these little tiny indie films, and that's where the mistake happens, is that people come into the industry not looking at it as a business, and that's what it is.
Right. I mean, it's good to be artistic, but at the same time, that's not being a business person if you just be looking at it as an artist.
If you're just, I mean, look, even art, like art that you buy, paintings, that you buy them at Christie's, you want your paintings to sell at an auction.
Right.
You don't want to sell your paintings outside for $5 at the carnival.
Right.
And that's what an indie film is. In I would say 95% of the cases are people selling caricature photos in a carnival for $5 because they have absolutely no business sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of this fantasy thing. I want to make a film. But what are you going to do with this film once you make it?
Right. Well, hey, Marcia, I really appreciate you coming on, and you know, like, I want the viewers to know that this is just the introduction to what could be.
We kind of went into a lot of stuff, didn't we? I don't think we'll talk about any crazy, you know, things going in so many directions.
Right, but this was sort of an introduction to what will blossom into a maybe 3 to 5 part series, where we'll go more in depth on the different recipes and the different aspects of the different businesses. And I just want to thank you so much.
They want, John. If people want to know about the cat recipes, let's go for it. If people want to know about, if there's actors and different people out there who want to know anything about the, you know, the entertainment industry, I'm happy to discuss that as well.
That's awesome. And I thank you so much for sharing this. And, you know, audience, definitely tune in, because there will be more coming up. And thank you so much, Marcia.
Oh, thank you, John, for having me. It was really a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.